Welcome, everyone. We're looking forward to your comments and questions, and we are live with a special Our Android Week about Android Wear with Alan Firstenberg in New York, Bruce Turner in Lynchburg, Virginia, Duke Carrico in Kingsport, Tennessee, Kadeaus Couloute in Newport Beach, California, in Menifee, California, Pam Adger. This is a special Our Android Week. Okay, welcome. We just saw each other last night. We're kind of getting on each other's nerves already, but this is a special we wanted to do because Google has announced Android Wear, which is a version of Android for wearables, think smartwatches and other things. And also, Motorola is set to announce the Moto 360 tomorrow on a Hangout on Air at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. The designer for that product, and also there's a rumor, or I guess LG has confirmed, the unfortunately named LG G smartphone or watch. So first, Alan, I know you have been tinkering around with the software development kit which came out today for Android Wear, and I know you had some mixed views. You're generally excited, but you were surprised at some of the limitations. So tell us, from your 10,000 feet in the air first glance, what is Android Wear? What should we expect?
Well, it's actually in some ways a little bit difficult to understand exactly what Android Wear is right now. We're all still trying to get a grasp on it, but what it seems to be is that it is a build of Android that is intended for wearable devices, with the initial target very obviously being a smartwatch. No tremendous surprise there. What the SDK is kind of the companion set of tools, so that developers can start building apps today for devices that aren't available yet. So that when they are available, it'll be much easier. They'll have that kind of a head start. I've only begun to read the documentation for the SDK. I haven't downloaded it yet. It is you need approval in order to get it so far. So you need to sign up for the developers program for it. But there are some interesting things that both the preview videos that we've seen and the documentation reveal. And the first is that it bears a striking similarity to some of the design guidelines that Glass has been talking about for over a year now. So that's been very interesting to see in some ways, that they're sharing some very common design principles, even though the visuals on both are very different. What's your take on that so far, Kadeaus? Have you read anything about how it's comparing to Glass?
I've noticed a lot. Just the way the platform's going to be kind of locked down, no advertisements. There's certain types of, when you're doing notifications, there are certain types of basically some will vibrate, some won't, based on the type of notification that it is and the type of notification that you program it to be. So I see that being the same thing with Glass, not being so intrusive into your life, interrupting everything because, oh, IKEA's got a new desk that they want to sell you or whatever. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that when it comes to Google, not just wearables or just certain things, but Google in general. They seem to be trying to control this advertising side of things, so that way people aren't annoyed. Yeah. Getting back to your normal life, basically.
That's a really good point. When Glass first came out, people were talking about how this was, a new advertising delivery platform for Google. And Google's worked very hard to kind of knock that argument down.
We were discussing smartwatches. One thing I'm really excited about this, in our show last night we were discussing them, and one of the things that I didn't like is the iterations I've seen thus far have basically been boxy, and I think Pam was making fun of it, had her Note 3 on her wrist. But this Moto 360 looks beautiful, and we've learned that rather than working with just select partners, they're opening this up so anybody can do it, just like an Android phone, correct? So I think they're working with Fossil, the watch. I talked to Craig Ship, who's our Google Plus Week panelist, our Friday night show, and he said that it's a medium-level nice watch. It's not like a Rolex or something, but it's a good one. And this is the thing that I was thinking makes so much sense, because you've got these watch companies that have seen their sales decline over the last couple of decades as people stop wearing watches as often, and now they got a way. I mean, you're going to see people want watches, and they're going to be jumping in that game. So I'm very excited. It's not going to be clunky, boxy things. There will be those, but we're going to see actual companies that have for 100 years been designing beautiful watches going down this direction. Your thoughts on that?
Well, hopefully so. I mean, 2 weeks ago, you'll remember on the show we talked about the design vision that somebody had for a round watch, and the comment at that time was, well, round screens are kind of difficult. So I think we're seeing with the Moto 360, it's going to be a round screen. The developer materials that have been promoted are talking about how you need to account for the fact that it may be a round screen or maybe a square screen. I think the thing I found most interesting in talking about the sizes is that they're kind of targeting a 320 by 320 screen. So this is a lower resolution than I think a lot of people were expecting.
And then the other thing I think that's going to happen with this, with us having a round screen versus a square screen, that may start to become an issue when you're building apps. And so you have to build apps that's going to be formatted for this, and then there's got to be another subset where it's formatted for this size. So that may become more of a problem than a solution.
Well, here's the interesting thing that I've seen so far, and I've only begun to scratch the surface on the documentation, but it really feels like a lot of Android developers are going to be very unhappy about what their choices are on apps. You're not actually going to be able to run anything on the watch itself. All the watch will do is serve as a notification conduit. Android Wear is very, very notification focused. And we saw this when Glass first came out. Glass at first started notification focused and opened up a little bit. But right off the bat, the Wear people seem to be cautioning, don't plan on running things on the watch.
This is basically, you're going to be making two apps. You're going to have to make an app for the two-way communication with the watch. Like in the video, there's jellyfish in the water because it knows where you are, a Google Now alert, and then the lady, Google open my garage door. But it's actually a companion app on the phone that's actually going to do that, right?
No. What it seems to be, Dan, is that you're only writing one app, but that app needs to know how to display to two different places. So it will know how to work on your phone, but it will also need to know how to send notifications to your watch and how to get responses from your watch. So think of it more as an additional keyboard and an additional display for your main app.
So you're really writing a phone app.
Looks like right now.
You're writing a conventional Android app, and you're adding functionality to communicate with a second screen. So really, all the existing Android apps out there could potentially roll, when appropriate, notifications and interaction with the wearable.
Not all of them, and that's part of what I think some people are going to be unhappy about. There are going to be a class of apps that will not be able to take advantage of this notification paradigm.
Because it's not practical, or because they won't be allowed?
Because go ahead, Kadeaus.
Oh, because it's not practical. It's kind of the same thing we ran into with Glass, where when we could only develop on one side, where there are things that you want to design and you want to develop, but this platform is only set for notifications or cloud-type notifications, and so it made it so you're not able to do certain things. And so it's going to be kind of the same scenario there.
Is it a Bluetooth connection with the phone?
More than likely.
That's a pretty good guess.
Yeah, more than likely.
So we're not going to be getting wrist cancer with LTE on our watches. Someone commented, I can't wait for the first traffic tickets.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I believe your comment to me was how this was an obviously superior technology over Glass. Or, no, I think you said that there are going to be 10,000 sales of a watch for every sale of Glass. And I said, yes, but you won't know that it's made it until you get a traffic ticket for wearing a watch.
Indeed.
Kadeaus and I have been making the comparison to Glass throughout the entire show, and it's in some ways it's unfortunate. This platform really should be able to stand on its own, but it's an obvious comparison. And it's,
but Glass is also a wearable, so why would it's pretty much the same category.
It's a similar category, yes. And I think it's kind of telling that they didn't launch by using glass as an example. They made absolutely no parallels, no comparisons whatever to glass in their advertising. I have a feeling these are just developed by two completely different offices.
Oh, I do agree with that, though. They are.
The real question is going to be when the next release of Glass's operating system comes out, will we start seeing the support for Android Wear in it as well? I mean, that's been the speculation. And we'll see if that's why this is so, the next release has been so delayed.
Okay, so I'm looking at we're seeing a picture of sort of a squarish, I'm guessing that's the LG G watch.
Yes, my understanding is the LG G is square and the Moto 360 is round.
Because they're so good at naming things. The LG G. And the Moto 360, which is a better name, and a round watch. I wonder if it'll come in two sizes, like a traditional man versus woman's watch. Stylistically, but these aren't really watch companies. I mean, Motorola's not known for their watches, and nor is LG, I don't think. So when we see the actual watch manufacturers, who, like I said, have had decades coming up with beautiful jewelry class watches, and they start putting these on there. So it looks like the Moto G the LG G is going to come out first. And looking at the video that they shared, I think that the LG one is the one that they were using, right?
Well,
or both.
I saw both square and round ones on there.
They both looked large on a woman's hand.
It seems to me they're going to be fairly large. There's no way around that right now. You said it sounds like the LG one is going to be out first. Have they announced a release date for it yet?
Okay, I'm looking here at this article from Kevin Toffel. The headline, LG watch to arrive before the Moto 360. The LG confirmed Tuesday. It's expected to arrive in the second quarter of this year. So before June, end of June.
Well, so the second quarter starts in 2 weeks.
Right. And then...
but by the end of June. Huh. Funny how that timing works out, doesn't it?
So your goodie bag, when is I.O.?
The end of June.
Interesting. What a coincidence.
What an amazing coincidence.
So what's the timing on this? Why do you think
timing, watch, that's a pun.
Oh, see what I did there? I'm even inadvertently funny. Arguably. So why would they announce this 3 months ahead of I.O. if they're going to release the watch at I.O.?
Because they want the developer they're priming the pump. It's the same reason why I keep going back to Glass. It's the same reason why Glass releases their APIs early to a small set of developers. They want the apps out there.
Pixel too.
What was that, Kadeaus?
They did the same with the Pixel too. Remember, the Pixel was announced and everything started rolling out before it actually was a few months before I.O. So
in this case, one of the big reasons is they want the APIs out there. They want the software already developed for it. So when the watch hits the market, there's not this, big gap of, where are the apps?
Yeah, you don't want a 3D TV with to go on market with 6 titles available for it.
Right. They want the apps already there, ready and waiting. And that's kind of, it was one of the problems they had with the Chromecast, is they launched with a couple of partners, and then a whole bunch of other partners said, hey, what about us? And there was a big nothing. So now they're coming out and saying, hey, if you want to develop for it, play with it now. And the best apps that are out there, we're going to cherry pick you, and you will be the ones that are selected for launch. Everyone wants to be the app that they showcase on the I.O. stage. They want that national press. And this is Google saying, hey, if you want that attention when these launch, you got to start developing now, because we'll pick the best of you by then.
The purchase of Nest, is there a connection?
In a broad sense, yeah.
Because do they do garage door openers? I know they do smoke detectors. What all do they do?
They do thermostats and smoke detectors.
Okay. All right. So If you guys want to comment, you can comment on the YouTube video. You can comment on the Google Plus post. I'm looking at the event. We can't pick those up automatically in our system, but I'm checking that to see if you comment on the event. If you have any questions or comments, because Alan's been tinkering a little bit, at least with the manual. So how much, one of the criticisms of Android historically has been fragmentation. Anybody can do anything with it to a degree. There are limits if you want to run the Google services on there. But if you're Amazon, you want to just take it and do whatever you want with it, you can. Do you think we're going to have more control from your first glance? In other words, is the functionality going to be universal amongst all these? Or are people going to have the freedom to do whatever they want to do? And which would make it more challenging for you app developers.
I think it's going to be limited from the beginning.
I'm more or less inclined the same way. I think there is probably going to be an open source version of it, and that's fine, but I don't think the open source version is going to do too much. So, you're going to see, if somebody does come out with an Android watch, I mean, there are already Android watches out there. But if somebody comes out using this, they're probably going to have to sign up for Google services because that gets you Google Now. And this is basically the Google Now watch.
All right, this is the one I've been asking for. If we were going to do it, Google Now.
Yeah, this is exactly what I've wanted. I wanted them to have mainly notification, some interaction, tethered to a phone, and to work and to make it so that existing watch companies can come out with an attractive one instead of some ugly box. And I think that's exactly, I think we're getting what we want, except you seem kind of, I don't know if I want to say disappointed, but surprised at some of the limitations, like the one statement.
Oh no, I'm not the least bit surprised by the limitations. I'm just kind of predicting that a whole bunch of Android developers are going to be unhappy by it. Because they're going to want more. They expect more. So they're going to be unhappy. You're going to find a bunch of people who will be unhappy by this. But, that goes without saying.
And my main question for Google on this is, now that we are going into the wearables, are we finally going to fix the Bluetooth issue with the whole entire Android platform where you can only have one device paired at a time? Because with this setup, the way this is set up, if I have glass and I have this watch, I'm going to have to pick in between what I'm going to use. Because it's only going to allow you to have one thing paired.
And if you're driving in a state where you have to have a Bluetooth capable communications device hands-free, I guess you could use the speakerphone.
Now, Kadeaus, maybe you're more familiar with this than I am. Can you have more than one type of Bluetooth accessory paired?
You can't have two devices paired simultaneously.
So you can't have a headphone and a keyboard paired?
You cannot.
Interesting.
But the reverse is true. You can have a couple different phones paired to the same speakerphone. My speakerphone in my car will do that.
Right, but they won't do it simultaneously.
Oh, so whichever one of us gets in the car first.
With the phone, this isn't an issue. So in the car, to give you I'm the car person. So in the car, what you run into is if I'm wearing glass and I'm getting directions through glass, I can't use the same device to play music through the car because it's only gonna, when you choose play music through the car, glass is disconnected. When you choose get directions for glass, the car music is disconnected. You can only have one device Bluetooth simultaneously. So hopefully this is finally the fix that I've been crying for anyway. Because with the iPhone, you don't have that problem. I can pair 10 things and they'll all say connected, and I just pick and choose what I'm doing. They'll all work simultaneously.
It's also cumbersome to switch. If I want to switch from one Bluetooth device to another, I've got to go into settings and wireless settings, Bluetooth, cut this one off, set the one thing to make itself available, scan. That's, you're driving.
It's always a dance. It's always a dance. You can't do that while you're driving. It's too much going on.
Okay. So what do you think about price points? I'm guessing we're going to see a wide range. I think eventually we're going to see a $30 Google Watch, and we're going to see fancy ones, right?
I'd say to stay competitive, they'll probably stay around the Pebble price, somewhere in there, 200, in between 100 and 200.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
willing to bet between 100 and 300. You're not going to see Samsung try to undercut themselves. So they'll be aiming for the price of what their gear currently goes for.
Is this going to make
And
the gear obsolete overnight, or there's still going to be market?
it was obsolete the day it was released. That's
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, now you have two totally different platforms. So either Samsung's going to have to conform.
Well, and one of the partners that Google said they were working with was Samsung on this. That was one of the ones they listed in the blog. So, did the Samsung Gear 2 just get obsoleted? Probably.
Don't you think they would have given them a heads up that this was coming? Samsung's their biggest partner.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they would have had to known it was coming, but
Of course, we knew that this was coming. This was not a surprise to anybody. So who knows why Samsung did what they did?
Well, if they sell, if they make a profit on it, even if it sucks, if they can sell X number, and it was a combo. You had to buy a Samsung phone and to get that. It was. We'll see. Time will tell. So you're expecting a goodie bag with either a Moto 360 or an LG G or both.
I've got no clue.
Maybe a choice
what
between the
they're
two.
going to do. Ooh, a choice. That would not be good. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But I think it's clear that there's going to be at least one wearable in the I/O goodie bag this year.
It will be interesting if they did a choice, and there will be a mini scandal on the tech websites about who won. Which one the developers wanted. Like 80% of the developers got the one instead of the other. That'd be embarrassing.
It's almost always going to come down to price, and the developers will buy the cheap one and get the expensive one at I/O.
Poor Nate bought a Chrome Pixel and then went to I/O, and they gave him one, so he didn't need. He blew $1,200. Ended up with an extra one, air and a spare. All right, so I'm excited. You're between meh and pretty cool, or?
I think this is decent. I'm glad to see it. I think my hesitation is there's nothing in this that really makes me go, ooh. Certainly looking at the design guidelines, I'm happy because they're echoing Glass's design guidelines, and maybe this means Android people will listen to me when I talk about having to design for wearables. So I'm encouraged about that aspect. But I know, I'm just concerned that people are going to look at this, and they're going to say, well, why can't I write Flappy Bird for my watch? Because I can't. Why not? I should be able to. So you're going to hear that. There's going to be some people upset about this, but overall, I think this is good. This is a step in the right direction.
It's also the first generation, so they'll learn, and if there's a demand, you could do it differently in the second generation, right?
Well, Glass is still in the 0th generation, and it's doing both now. So. Yeah, it always comes back to Glass with me. I'm sorry.
Can you give me a quick major differences between this and, because this is build, you're wearing, you have Glass, which is a wearable, and they're calling this Android Wear. So it's kind of weird. This is obviously they're coming out with two watches, but why have the separate?
Well, at least
yours
two
is
watches.
like Wear Plus, and this is Wear.
That's actually a really good. That's a good way to put it. Certainly from just the very, very early reads on this. Basically, Glass can do just about everything that Wear can do. Wear's big difference is that it's more graphically oriented. It's got more graphics to it. It's got background images that smoothly flow. So it's got some neat aspects to that Glass very deliberately doesn't do. But certainly from the first release, we see things like Glass has camera support, where these wearables don't. Glass has the bigger screen. These wearables don't, although they appear to be aiming more for a richer color screen than what Glass is encouraging. Wear has some limitations on what the replies are. Glass doesn't do that right now, although it's not a bad idea. Glass lets you run your own apps on it, Wear very much does not. It's very much a notification. Glass has voice triggers. It's not clear how Wear will do those voice triggers, although it's kind of implied that you will. The OK Google, open the garage, that was interesting, but I didn't see anything in the documentation yet about how to do that. So I'm curious where that's coming from.
Well, if it's basically a Google Now screen, 320 is fine, because if you think, if you're looking at your phone, whatever phone you have, like my cracked,
but Dan,
the actual
here's the
portion of the notification isn't much different than that size, and if it's not going to be able to run programs on it, you're probably talking a very long battery life compared to a full feature to glass or a full featured smartwatch, right?
That's going to be the real question, is to see what goes on with the battery life with all of these devices.
Is it going to look like a 1980s TV cameraman where they had the belt and all the batteries, big box batteries, because they can only get like 20 minutes out of a battery?
If you think about this, Alan, with the battery life, the glass battery really isn't that big. And so with if that same exact battery was placed into the watch, it's doing less than glass is doing, especially since it's mainly leaning on notifications and Bluetooth. It may actually last a pretty long time.
Well, with one caveat, though. Your watch, you expect to always be showing the time. Glass has a deliberate action to show the time. So unless your watch is just going to be a bare thing, and it'll detect when you move it, but it's going to detect that you move it up to
There's something else running. Yeah, that's true.
So it's going to be running and it's not just going to be running all the time, it's going to be displaying all the time. So unless they're using Pebble-like, the what the e-ink stuff, you're going to get battery issues.
How long does a Pebble last?
A couple of weeks.
That's pretty good. And I'm looking at these two. The video they put out shows, basically it looks like traditional Google Now notifications, like you'd get on your phone or whatever, your tablet.
Yeah.
But the two pictures here of the LG, I'm assuming this square one is the LGG. It doesn't say that, but that's the picture we're seeing with all the stories from LG, I guess. And then the Moto 360, of course, that's the round one at the bottom. Both of these are not displaying the same sort of thing we're seeing in the commercials. These are one's completely black and white. One is black and white with the red second hand timer. So I'm guessing you might have some sort of. Would that be that clock there? Is that?
Now
that's
keep
not
in
an
mind,
app on the phone.
On the Motorola side, wasn't they doing something with the Moto X where it only lit up the pixels that was needed? I remember that where the screen would light up only the pixels needed when the phone is sitting there. Maybe they're using that to save battery life, because I remember that was one of their key things that they were.
Interesting. That could be. That would be interesting.
So if you look at these pictures here, Alan, you said you won't be able to write a traditional app to run on this device.
Correct.
I'm looking here at the time, and I see a notification. It's not the LGG does not look like a traditional Google Now notification. It says San Francisco to JFK, right?
Oh, dang it. Well, apparently Charlie says it does it only once a minute, but what it'll do, it'll only light up the pixels needed to show the time at that second. So, and Charlie said it says it pops up once a minute, it stays on screen maybe 8 seconds, and then it goes. Say it again? If you have a notification, so like if he sent me a Hangout message or I sent him one, it would show just the notification. Actually, I should do that real quick. But yeah, it'll show just the notification needed. Here we go. So like now, I just sent him a Hangout notification. It vibrates, and see how it fades in. It shows that he has a Hangout notification, and then if he doesn't do anything, it fades out. And obviously, if he moves or something, it would bring it back up. So I'm sure that this is what they'll use to. Here you go, Charlie. This is something they've used on the watch, at least from Motorola side.
It'll be interesting to see what they do and how they do it. I think there's some potential there.
Well, here's okay. So you said you can't write an app that would actually run on this device. You write a regular Android app.
That's how it seems right now. Correct.
Well, these clocks, like on the Moto 360, we see an image of a clock. On the LGG, I think that's what it is. We see the time, and we see what appears to be a now notification, but not in the traditional graphical sense that we see on our phones with the pretty color. So we don't even know if the LGG is color. You might see black and white versions.
I think I'm pretty sure we do know that it's color. That Google, as part of the design guidelines, they're talking about how the images that you're providing should be color images.
So, okay, are these apps that the time, for example, do you have to be Bluetooth tethered to keep time, or would that be built into the watch?
I assume that's built into the watch. Quartz crystal is pretty cheap these days.
So you basically will have, they will be different in size and maybe in the built-in apps like the watch itself, and then similarity in the Google Now functionality. You're predicting?
That's what I'm reading so far. I mean, I very well could easily be wrong on this one, but that's what I'm reading so far.
Okay. All right. Anything else, guys? So we're cautiously optimistic.
See what Motorola does tomorrow.
And Alan is getting his desk ready for his goodie bag, clearing off space for all of his goodies he's going to get at I/O. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. We do our Android Week every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 Pacific. We did it last night. It's on the same YouTube channel this is on. And also we do Google Plus Week Friday nights at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific every Friday, Google Plus Week. And we'll be talking about this more on Friday. So the Moto 360 announcement is tomorrow, the 19th of March. At 2 p.m. Eastern Time. 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, March 19th, in a Google Hangout on Air. Just look for their Motorola page. It'll be shared all over the place. And the designer of the Moto 360, the lead designer, will be in that Hangout, and I'm hopefully answering questions and commenting. So I'll be watching, and I would encourage you to as well. And it's an exciting day. We see a new major product category, Android Wear, and 2 smartwatches. So we'll see. One last question, Alan. This is a different team than Glass, right? This isn't actually part of an Android team.
This is the Android team. This is out of Android. This is not out of Project. This is not out of Google X. This is not the Glass team.
So there could have been minimal collaboration, right? This could have been totally separate on 2 islands.
Certainly so in the past. The question is going to be, are they getting closer? And I think there's at least some indication that they might be. We'll see how that plays out.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the comments and questions. Yeah, this was fun. So it's a work day. So to folks watching now or later, please comment and we can speculate, and we'll discuss this Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and on Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful Android week.